So we're here today with Mark Garcia, whose son is one of John 13's community members. And I'm Mike Carr, and my son is also one of John 13's community members. So we thought it'd be interesting just to have a conversation between two dads about our journey to find something like John 13, what we like about the program, where it's going. But first, we'd like to tell you a little bit about each of us so you understand our perspective. So, Mark, I'd just like you to start and tell us a little bit about your background, anything you want to share about your son, and what you found attractive about John 13, and then I'll maybe do the same.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Mark Garcia. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I've been a board certified behavior analyst since 2014. I was previously working for early childhood intervention before that, from 2006 to 2012, while I was getting my master's. And that was, a program that helped children with developmental disabilities from birth to 3 years of age. And I did some interpretation for that program for people that did, occupational speech, OT, PT, all that other stuff, nutrition, counseling. And because of that, I felt really well rounded because I got to see all their strategies and techniques. So when Ethan, my son, did get the diagnosis, I felt prepared, but who's ever, really prepared for something like that? I mean, even as a professional, you're taken back by the diagnosis and it really affects, your life. It impacts your life. So, then comes into thought, process, the problem solving. Like, how are we gonna handle this? What are we gonna do to rectify this, or at least to get our child to reach his potential? So what I think John 13 is all about is that vision. I feel that when I'm, around everybody associated with it. I love being a BCBA. I love helping people and families. It's my passion. I love giving really professional advice, but also connecting with families that, are more open to talking things through, that collaboration, that personal collaboration, that it's not so clinical and businessy, which yes, it has to be, but also it has to be personal. We have to get to know these people as people, what makes them tick, what they like, and what drives their behaviors. If we can really understand them as people, we can help them with their behaviors more than ever. And then once that's taken care of course, push them on to bigger and higher things. So that's what I love to do. That's who I am, and I feel like collaborating with something like John 13 is completely appropriate because I feel that from them as well.
Oh, well, you're a lot more qualified than I am. So I'm just a dad that has no training or no background at all in any of this stuff. But I do have a 33-year-old son who is autistic and he's on the low end of the spectrum. Um, he's nonverbal, he has seizures, he has some behavioral challenges. And so my wife and I went around the country, about 12, 13 years ago, and we tried to find a program that we thought we could trust, right? That's always something I think, Mark, you mentioned that we really have to always feel good about the environment, right? And understand not just our son and what makes him tick, but also where he's going to be and who he's going to be with. And we just couldn't find a program that would take our son. There's some outstanding programs out there, but they tended to go for the higher functioning folks that didn't have any behavior problems or didn't have any medical issues like seizures. And yeah, they still needed a lot of help, but they weren't quite at the lower level that Michael was at. And so we decided to try to get John 13 up and going and make this happen with this idea that, it's more than just glorified babysitting, and it really does hopefully provide something that's, getting the sons and the daughters out into the community, uh, having them do something meaningful, right? Both Ethan and Michael now have jobs that are sort of cool. And I just like to get your thoughts on that, Mark. I mean, just basically, you've seen a lot of other programs. You've interacted with a lot of parents who probably either started this journey or going to start this journey. Just what do you find so compelling about what you've seen with Ethan and Michael? And maybe it's a crux, maybe it's not, but just any thoughts that you have that, hey, this is why this program's maybe better, different, or at least worth considering from a parent's perspective.
The one thing that I immediately saw that was different and set John 13 apart was the obvious, what every program should do but never does. They built reinforcement right into the program itself. So what you're looking at is a situation where you have an individual who isn't feeling threatened by the environment. And that's huge because kids, just typical kids, don't want to go to school for those reasons. They're around strangers. They have to deal with teachers and their authority. all these rules or whatnot. These guys are walking in a situation that just looks fun. It doesn't look intimidating. It doesn't look, overwhelming. It's inviting. It's something that they look around and go, wow, this place is actually somewhere I'd like to be. So when you have that, there's no better start than that. That's the best thing to hope for, because a lot of times you have to get through those barriers first. And not only do you waste time, but you might even build a history of that sort of, frustration or intimidation. But there you don't have that. So in an ideal situation, you want to be set up with something like this. And think John 13 has nailed that. And you know, that's what I would say. I would say that they've done such a great job reinforcing everything that happens along the way, so that even if there is a behavior, it's minimized completely. Even if there is a behavior, it's handled appropriately by professionals. The ratio is wonderful. I really feel like from the get-go, they do a wonderful job in establishing that trust and building that rapport.
Yeah, you just cut out a little bit there. So what was that last sentence you just said?
I said they do a wonderful job in establishing that trust and building that rapport.
Right. Yeah, and I was very skeptical. I have to be honest. When Hayden, who was the executive director of John 13, and he is also a board certified BCBA, so he has that background, Mark, that you have too, that understands, the environment and how to make the community members comfortable and how to bring in the right colleagues and train the staff. But when he said a climbing gym, I thought, you're out of your mind. I mean, our son can't climb. I mean, he's very mobile, but he won't hold on to things, and he tears things down and he just won't get it. He won't understand what a climbing gym is all about. I thought, this is insane. But when you go there and you see the environment, and it is fun and it's exciting and it's different and there's lots of activity and everybody is very supportive, right? They say hello, they want to know what's going on. And Michael lit up, and I don't know, what was Ethan's reaction when he first went in, and were you surprised at all to sort of see him moving up those walls, or did you sort of expect that?
No, actually, I did kind of expect it. There was a little part of me, because we've never done that before. My son's a very physical kid. I raised him outdoors. We did a lot of camping,
Okay.
hiking, swimming, those kinds of things. And I like to tell people, and I do pat myself on the back for this, more as a dad than as a BCBA, but I did a really good job, I think, exposing him to everything. We would be at concerts, we'd be at, festivals, we'd be at church, we'd be at, you know, what is it that plays in the park they do every summer.
Right.
We would
Right.
go to the Capitol, we go to a museum, we'd go to a movie. I mean, basically, I wanted to set him up in such a way that he was just really well rounded. And I just went into the idea of, he could handle anything, and he was able to. I was fortunate enough to have a son that was able to handle that without having all those behaviors. So I intentionally did it, but it was kind of a byproduct that, when we walked into John 13, I expected him to be okay, but I didn't expect the level of expertise, in quotes, that he demonstrated, that first day. I was completely shocked that he just, the one thing that I was completely shocked at, it only took the instructors a couple of times to teach him how to put on the belt. That to
Right.
me was shocking, because he doesn't typically have the confidence to do that. So to see that happen day one was amazing. He walked in and just, loved it. I could feel as soon as he walked in that he was happy to be there. And it was so pleasing. I mean, I can't even say, the word is not pleasing, it's ecstatic, that when he was walking, climbing up the wall, that was beautiful to me. To see those types of skills just automatically happen in an environment that he didn't know, generalizing like that was incredible. And I thought, this is going to be a wonderful fit. If he's already from the first day taken so much by this place and really likes it this much, then he's going to make, progress here, and it will be successful. So Ethan, even though he's, I would say, moderately functioning, he's on the moderate end of the autism spectrum. He's not high functioning, at all really, but he's also not low functioning. He's kind of there in the middle. There's a lot of room to grow. And in a place like Crux that offers, like I said, the reinforcement up front, qualified staff, like, all you need is somebody, to that has, some prerequisites for that.
And one of the things that I think parents would be interested in is, I think there's always a great deal of skepticism about how your son or daughter, who maybe is an adult living at home, has been in this protected environment that you very intentionally provided because you want them to be safe, right? And
Right.
They can't maybe talk or they can't communicate very well. Our son uses a device, an iPad with all kinds of
Hmm.
icons to communicate that way.
Right.
And so when you see them in this environment of it's noisy, and a lot of folks
Yeah.
like our sons don't necessarily like a lot of noise. There's a lot of commotion, there's a lot of activity. It's almost like, oh, this is not going to work. And then you get that amazing surprise, right? Like Michael likes Ethan, and they make a great team. Now Michael can't climb the wall. He can take a step or two with some help. But like on the cleaning job that they've got, right? Michael loves to spray the cloth. And I mean, he'll put so much spray on the cloth to clean the windows. It's ridiculous. But he doesn't have the skills to reach up really high.
Yeah.
And as you said, Ethan will put one drop on that cloth. He doesn't want to overdo it. So I mean, he's got a little drop. And he
Hmm.
can reach all the way up with the extender, up 10 feet or however high the windows are. And so neither one of them can do the job. But together they make this incredible team. Michael's here soaking the cloth, gives it to Ethan. Ethan puts it on the thing, and all the way up to the top he goes, up and down, up and down. That kind of interaction you just don't see in a typical home environment because it's just you don't have the opportunity for socialization. You don't have all the noise and all the other stuff that's very real world like for most of us, but not necessarily something that an autistic individual that's typically been in a home setting or since they got out of school in a home setting is going to see. And so that to me was pretty cool and pretty exciting. I'd like for you though, Mark, also talk a little about the staff. Like, Hayden and Ellen are two key folks right now at John 13. They both have degrees in the field. Hayden's the BCBA. I think Ellen has a master's, and she's almost to a BCBA in terms of all the requirements. Um, is there anything about, and then of course you have all the staff at a Crux that have skills in working with adaptive learning environments, helping folks whether they're autistic or Down syndrome or whatever. Is there anything though about the staff and the dynamic that you think is worth noting compared to the other programs that you've seen parents wrestle with? Because you've been out there in the Austin area looking at a lot of these other things, and so I don't have that perspective, and I'm not saying what John 13 offers is incredibly great. It has some weaknesses as all programs do, but what do you think makes it different, special, exciting, that kind of stuff from a staffing perspective?
Well, I mean, like you said, they're obviously credentialed to do the things that they're supposed to do. Um, and as far as them as individuals, I mean, I've known these people for quite a few years. What I would say about both of them is that, you know, this doesn't surprise me. This entire endeavor does not surprise me. And the reason why is because I don't know if some your wife has told you this, but a couple of years ago, I told her Hayden's going to be a great BCBA. I
Right.
can tell, after working with somebody and being around them for a little while, that they are going beyond the certification in that they try to figure out the individual and work with the family in such a way that it's going to be really beneficial. It's not just, another client. It's not just my third person of the day. No, this is a person and we have to try to figure them out and then try to get the parents involved. There's a passion there that I haven't seen in a lot of other places. There is, not to be cheesy, but a love that is apparent, between them and the people that they work with. It's so positive. It's so uplifting to my son. My son thrives on positive reinforcement. He thrives on smiles. He thrives on pats on the back. He thrives on great jobs. He thrives on all those little things that we as parents tend to neglect because we expect these positive behaviors. As parents and as people, we just expect other people to do what they're told or follow the rules or whatever. But that can be challenging for these guys sometimes. So
Oh yeah.
to acknowledge that and to reinforce that, to be a good person with a good heart, to really care, to really try and understand and collaborate with the family is incredible. And that's what I see these two people possess. They really have the heart for the job and they also have the professionalism obviously and the cognitive ability, obviously with their professionalism to be able to do everything they need to do to meet our needs and the needs of the of our children. And so there's I've been all over the place. I've been all over the place as a BCBA. I have seen tons of schools, tons of day programs, tons of clinics. Nothing comes close to the passion and the care that I see in these individuals for these providers or whatever. I'm sorry, these providers for these individuals. I don't see that level of passion anywhere else. So to me, that's an instant draw. And you can feel it as a parent, you can feel that. And that's important to us.
Yeah, I would agree. I know when we went around and toured some of the best programs in the country, we made it, we very intentionally went there on the weekends in some cases, right? When you didn't have your A team, just to see what it was like, right? And so part of our concern was, well, you walk into a place and, well, you don't have the staffing. And so some of the citizens are by themselves in their bedroom doing nothing, right? Or they're watching TV as a group, or it's basically glorified babysitting. It didn't have the same vibe and the same sense of energy and excitement. And so that was a big red flag for us, right? We wanted an environment that hopefully can accommodate folks like Ethan and Michael, all hours. And we're not there yet. I mean, just for anyone that's listening to this or watching this, I mean, this is a brand new program. I mean, we right now have half of a day once a week. So we've just expanded, I think, it to a full day once a week. And we're on track to have 3 days a week, during the day, like a 9 to 4 kind of program. But the dream and where we're headed is, a residential program, right? And we've already chatted and looked at some of the best residential programs in the area, where when you get too old and you don't want to have to take care of your son or daughter anymore, or you just feel like you can't provide the environment for them that really is best for them, that
Right.
a place like John 13 is going to have a home that they can live in. And of course, you can come visit whenever you want. You can take them away whenever you want and go on vacations and bring back to your house. But whenever you need some respite, whenever you need a break, and there will be staffing there, in the evenings, overnight, on the weekends. And I think part of what Hayden and Ellen are so good at is creating this environment of fun, joy, and purpose, right? It's people are having a good time. And Mark, you said this, you sort of get a sense that Ethan's going to like this, right? Ethan's enjoying this. And we get that same sense with Michael. He has a smile on his face, sort of goofy smile, but he's having a good time, right? And he has certain noises he makes when he's unhappy, and he has certain noises he makes when he's happy, and they're happy noises. So that's what we want to see. But in all honesty, I think we have a ways to go, and part of what we're trying to do very intentionally, and Hayden's incredibly talented at this, is create that culture to retain the staff. And Mark, from your perspective, having seen all these other programs, what would you advise a parent to look for? Because I think some of the folks listening to this or watching this are going to be saying, okay, we're fixing to go out and look at these programs, and we want to look at the best in the country. What don't you necessarily see, or what should you sense? I mean, if you had to say, hey, the top 5 things I would look for if you're trying to find a great day program for your son or daughter, or maybe even if you're thinking about a residential, have you seen any things that maybe aren't all that obvious that might give a parent some insight on, okay, here's something to ask, to watch for, to have on your checklist?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost is parental input. So if the organization is geared towards collaboration, that's going to be a huge deal because as a parent, when you trust and entrust your child to an organization for development like this, you're really kind of giving a piece of yourself away. That's what it feels like. That's your baby. That's your child. That's the one person that you have to take care of because they can't advocate for themselves. So intrinsically, you really want to protect them, And so whenever two people like Hayden and Ellen come with this collaborative approach, it starts to put that at ease. So I would say number one is look for things like that. Look for, are they asking me questions? Are they wanting my input? Are they wanting my presence? Are they keeping me involved? Are they keeping me updated? Am I getting regular little, informationals on how things are going? Do I have the ability to speak into, what's going on over there? By telling them what happened last night with my child or just a few hours ago. Is that door open? Those things I think are huge because that's where not only trust is built, amongst them when they're doing their thing, but also with the parents. And we have to feel comfortable with what's going on. They make that incredibly easy. And that's the number one I would say to look for as a parent. Make sure the organization wants you to be a part of it.
Right.
Unlike other organizations I can mention that tend to close the door on parents and ignore or, just kind of manipulate the circumstances or whatnot. That is not what you want to feel whenever you're walking into a situation like this. You want to feel comfortable. And that's exactly what John 13 does. They put you at ease by inviting you into the process up front. So that's huge. I would say another thing is, the activity, the scheduling of the program. Are they keeping the guys busy? Are there, things built into the day that are work related, but also related to reinforcement? And again, John 13's nailed that, because I know as a BCBA, these guys will work, but they will oftentimes work for something, and if that something is not built into that routine, you might see challenging behaviors because they get frustrated after a certain period of time. So because reinforcement is abundant in this environment, and I think going to be abundant in what John 13 becomes, then you already have, again, a situation where you're set up to win. That would be another thing I would say that's huge. Um, you know, John 13, to me, I don't see many holes in their armor. I think that they have a lot of things covered. Um, Obviously, as a parent, you want to have, the situation be a safe one for your children. You've got to have people that are going to be present and readily available in case anything happens, that are trained, and the ratio is important. That again is covered, with John 13. There's not a ratio of 1 to 10 students, or 10 to 10 citizens. There's not a ratio where somebody can even just accidentally elope from the group and get lost in the environment or become separated, and then something were to happen. So the fact that they're kept safe, obviously, in an enclosed environment, supervised by trained people at all times, puts me at ease, because this is the first time I've ever let my son go to a situation like this. He's with me all the time. I'm
Right.
constantly with him, and I have a fear of leaving him with people that I don't know very well or that I don't trust, because he cannot advocate for himself. And in a world such as today's, where things, let's just face it, aren't exactly the best right now,
Right.
you want to be able to trust people with your children. And you hear horror stories of what's going on in schools and at day programs and all this abusive stuff. And that's the last thing we want to worry about when we have 9 to 5 jobs that we're trying to keep up with to provide for our children. We want to feel like, what, they're in a good, safe place. And John 13 again takes care of that as well. So those would be for sure my top three to help parents feel comfortable when looking into situations like this.
Well, that ratio is hugely important. And it's not just like right now that we think it's one-on-one, right? We're hoping that we can have enough coverage. So let's say we have a group activity of maybe eight community members. So 8 folks like Ethan and Michael. And we might have, let's say, 4 staff or 5 staff. So now all of a sudden you've got 1 staffer or 1 team member for every 2. But one of those folks is like a monster person, right? They sort of roam about. And if one of the citizens is having a problem, one of the community members is having a problem, they're immediately there to take care of that. So it doesn't disrupt the rest of the group. Now, we haven't worked this out, and we've had parents come to us and say, well, how can I know for sure that my son or daughter is going to never get hurt, or is never going to um, do something inappropriate? And we can't make, I don't think there's any program around that can say absolutely, this is not a perfect program, this is not a perfect world. There will be injuries, there will be accidents. We're doing everything we can to prevent them and to mitigate them and to try to make them um, as minimal as possible. But things are going to happen, and we have protocols in place. I mean, our son had a seizure. It sort of freaked some of the crux folks out that had never seen a seizure before. Our staff, though, already had the protocols in place. We've made some changes since then so that the folks that are there occupying the gym aren't as upset or concerned about it, that they sort of understand that, okay, this might happen. And as another community member comes in and they have some other behavior issue or medical problem, that everyone's sort of aware ahead of time, that there's almost like a fire drill, right? Instead of rehearsing the fire, you rehearse, okay, this is what we need to do, right? So by preparing in advance for, crazy behavior, a medical condition that arises like a seizure, we're trying to be very proactive in managing that. And I think Hayden and Ellen and others are going to be very, very adept at that. So I appreciate your positive comments. I know we're not all there just yet, but we're getting We're getting better every day. And what we're looking for are parents that are at a particular point in their journey, right? So if you're not convinced that your home isn't the ideal situation for your son or daughter, and that there isn't an advantage to maybe a more social setting, we're probably not right for you, right? John 13 probably isn't the right place for you. I mean, Kay and I tried for, you know, our son was diagnosed when he was 3. He's now 33. So we've been doing this for 30 years. He aged out of the school system at
Mm.
22, which was 11 years ago. So for 11 years, we've been trying to do this ourselves. We've done this with all kinds of other organizations over the years. We're at the point now where we realize there's some real advantages to a program that's not just in our home, and that having that community interaction and having Mark and Ethan, right, who isn't as low functioning as Michael, is a great dynamic, right? So you have a lower functioning son or daughter, and then you have someone that's maybe not super high functioning, but sort of somewhere in the middle. And there's almost a bond that can develop there, right? And I don't know, have you seen anything about how Ethan and Michael interact that you want to share, or anything you've noticed that, hey, this was sort of cool, right? The way I don't know if you've seen anything, but I'd be interested in any of your observations there.
Well, one thing that I've seen is, having known Michael previously, I know that he can be a little. I like the fact that he's very social. I love that he's social because you can build so much on that. But Ethan is a textbook person with autism in that he loves to be alone. He's very antisocial. He doesn't like to be social at all. He's got some social anxiety. Those are things that he struggled with. He tends to clam up, when people try to talk to him. And here at home, if I'm not engaging him and trying to keep him active and just interacting with him, his first choice will be to in his room playing his video games, you
Right,
know.
right.
So I was hoping that Michael's, ability to socialize and desire to want to socialize would help Ethan come out of his shell. And I'm absolutely seeing that. It's been so cool to witness Michael kind of trying to talk to Ethan and Ethan getting a little irritated, but with the prompting and the support of the staff, is now responding appropriately to Michael. So that's growing, right? The socialization on Ethan's part is definitely taking off. Another thing, a little bit of self-advocacy, because from what I've been told, and I think I have seen this maybe once, but Michael, because of his social nature, will get very close in proximity to Ethan. And that is something that Ethan does not like. With me, it'd be fine, or somebody he knows really, really well. But with a stranger, somebody that he doesn't know well, or just getting to know, it's going to be off-putting. So, well, I think initially was just kind of moving away or ignoring Michael, but now has the skills to say, hey, can you bring it down a little bit? Or can you step away? Or can you give me a little more space? Things like that. So you even have situations where socialization is growing in that regard, being able to say things politely that might not be so polite, but, be polite about them. That's something else that we all have to learn how to do. And, Michael's really been giving Ethan a lot in that he's challenging what I really, really want to see, which is socialization communication. Like you said, it was a great pairing because even though they're not exactly the same level functional wise, you're looking at a situation where they're getting something from each other regardless of that. And I really, really like to see how much, the staff are putting into that socialization component and trying to make an increase for both the guys because it's working. And like you said, two people don't have to be on the same level to be able to get something out of each other. They're absolutely gaining so many things from each other. But I think to me, that's the most important. I love the
Great.
socialization piece.
Yeah, and what's me so been so surprising, because Michael has a few other buddies he'll do things with. So like he was at the Barton Springs shopping mall, here in Austin on a really hot 105-degree day, like every day this summer seems to have been. And one of his buddies, much higher functioning, right? He doesn't really talk, but he can type. So I mean, he can type full sentences, which is pretty impressive. But he's not real motivated, right? He likes to sit on the couch and watch TV and cartoons and play on his keyboard. And he doesn't really like to walk up and down the mall. So I saw a video of Michael holding his hand, and he was grudgingly going down the mall. Michael was all super excited. And it was wonderful to see that interaction, because I think they get along much better now than they did maybe at first. But and I think back to the days when he was in school. So he's in his 18, 19 years old, and he had a different buddy who he would annoy the same way he might annoy Ethan, wanting to do stuff, and the other guy didn't want to do it. and he was higher functioning. So he opened the coat closet door and had Michael get inside and close the door. The teacher came back and said, Michael's pounding on the door because he can't get out. And, you know, it didn't last very long. So, I mean, there wasn't any danger or risk, but it's just every person brings to the table some very unique or some very interesting skills or personality attributes that you wouldn't think initially would mix all that well with
Yeah.
others, but you get two together, three, four, five, six together in an environment, and they start getting used to one another, and they're paying attention to each other in ways that, quite frankly, are surprising. Because when Michael was little, he didn't really care about anybody, right? Autistic
Mhm.
kiddos generally are very, you
Yeah.
know, in themselves, and they stem and they do all these weird things, and they just don't pay that much attention. But you get a few of them together, and it's really pretty cool to see all the weird, not necessarily weird, surprising ways they interact, and fun and exciting ways. And one of the things that I wanted you to speak to, and you talked a little bit about this, Mark, was, to me, there's an energy. It's a vibe about John 13 that we did not really see in most other places, right? And you mentioned, you know, the passion, but to me, there's almost this, you can sense people are having a good time, and it's not fake,
Hmm.
right? You can tell that when you walk into a room or you're watching something, this isn't a show. They're not just putting this on because you're there. They really are enjoying that. I mean, have you, compared to other programs, because I want to pull on your experience and your expertise going around looking at all of these other things. Is that something that you think is a bit unique, or you say, no, there are a few other programs like that, but what does make what John 13 is doing unique is something else? I mean, any additional observations on that?
Yeah, I would say that it's very unique because typically what I see is what you described earlier. It's kind of adult babysitting.
Right.
There's not a lot of structured activity time. There's not a lot of one-on-one time. There's not a lot of, trying to see people, reach certain goals. So when you look at a situation like John 13, you've got all those elements. So it is unique in that, sadly, you would expect that, right? You would expect more of these types of characteristics to be in other programs or things like that. And with situations that are funded by the state, a day programs that are out there, that people can go to, they're not they're not cut from the same cloth. I mean, they're different sorts of situations. They're basically adult babysitting. And as a parent that's involved, you don't want to see that. You want to see your child be pushed in some way to be able to make progress in some domain. So in a situation like this, when you have people that know what they're doing and invest that time and then specify goals to try to reach, then absolutely that's a unique experience. Um, there are clinics out there that are similar. But again, it's a clinic. You're walking into a building with white walls, that to them might seem like a hospital, might seem like a doctor's office, might seem like a dentist's office, might be intimidating. So when you walk into a situation where people know what they do, know what they're doing, they've got those activities, they've got that reinforcement schedule, and the actual environment is reinforcing, you can't lose. And that's another thing that's extremely unique, that's going on. Taking place in an environment that's actually fun. There's nothing but fun going on there. So much that I've seen this with my own eyes. Michael and Ethan are doing their thing with the staff in a particular room. People are coming in to see this because they're having so much fun. The typical people that go to this place are coming into the rooms just to hang out and see what's going on and kind of feel the vibe and get the energy going so that they can have a better workout or climb more or whatever the thing is that they're doing. I saw that happen and somebody commented on it. Can I hang out here? Isn't this the room where the guys are having fun and playing and stuff? And so Hayden said, yeah, yeah, go ahead and come on in. So I thought that spoke highly. They have nothing to do with the special needs community. They have nothing to do with the establishment or with John 13, but they just want to be there to sit and observe and feel the vibe that we're talking about. If that doesn't say, this is a cool place, I don't know what else does. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great comment. And I think the fact that they both now have paid jobs there, is pretty amazing too, right? And
Hmm.
it goes
Absolutely.
back to, it's not a 9 to 5 job, right? They might do something for a half hour or 45 minutes, and then they get to go play ping pong or do a little bit of climbing or whatever it is. And Hayden and Ellen mix it up enough, and every day is different, right? So you don't necessarily know, well, last week we did this, today we're going to do something different. You sort of go with the flow. And I think it gets back to the collaboration not just with parents, but the collaboration amongst themselves, amongst, them and the community members, the Ethans and the Michaels, with the
Mhm.
staff that's there. Every day you have a different flow with the whole objective. Let's make sure that everyone's as engaged as possible. They're having as good a time as possible. Yeah, there are gonna be bad days. Someone's gonna be off one day, and you sort of gear things down as a result, and maybe the working activities aren't quite as difficult or not as ambitious. You don't clean out as many cubbies, you don't sweep the floor as much, or you don't whatever. Obviously, that sort of ebbs and flows, but there's that flexibility there. There's that ability to customize and personalize each day differently, and to each community member, to each Ethan
Mhm.
or Michael differently. And I don't think we're ever going to lose that. I think part of what Hayden and Ellen feel strongly about, and we as parents feel strongly about, is you need to have that ability to adapt and be agile and nimble. So as this community grows and we have more community members like the Ethans and the Michaels and some of the other folks that have come and visited, that you still can sort of morph that without a very structured, firm program that, well, no, we're going to have, an hour of this and then we take a 5-minute break. That does not
Mhm.
work, I don't think, in the environment we're in. Do you have any other comments? I mean, I've gone through a lot of what we want to cover, and I know you've got a lot of other things going on. So before we close, is there anything else that you wanted to mention or just discuss that you think anybody listening to this, a parent with an autistic son or daughter, an adult that's living at home and is looking for maybe something to help them get out of the house more and that they feel really good about, or just anything in general that you want to comment
You know, well, for the sake of the conversation, my phone is not charging, so it might just cut off any second now.
on?
It's just, yeah, like I said, it's been one of those days. But I would say as a parent, the most important thing to do is to arm yourself with knowledge. You know, I would, absolutely start looking up terminology that's relevant to your child's situation. So dig into that disability, dig into strategies related to help that are specifically designed to help them. Dig into anything you can get your hands on. You don't have to be the brightest person in the world, but knowledge is power. And when you have knowledge, in reference to your child's particular disability, you can do so much more for them. You can advocate for them. You can find better programs like this one for them because you don't know what is out there. You don't know what's, comparable or what's, a good place to be or a bad place to be. You might walk into a place and think, oh, we've been to 5-day programs and they all kind of look the same. So we just kind of have to settle for this or that. No, that's absolutely incorrect. Is if you do your research on programs, if you do your research on the disability and the strategies related to be able to get your child to be able to attend a place like John 13, then that's the best thing. So it starts with you as a parent. How dedicated are you in understanding your child? How dedicated are you in trying to help your child and understand their disability so that you can find a place like this to support them beyond what you can do? So there's a line that you have to respect, that you can't necessarily cross on a regular basis because you could taint that parental relationship if you're too forceful as somebody that's an instructor, in quotes. You don't want to necessarily do that because then you could harm that relationship. So it's all about knowing your child well as a professional, but entrusting professionals that really care about them to do the work of the professional. Because yes, we're here to help our children. Yes, we're here to guide them, but we're ultimately their parents. We're not their
Right.
therapists. So we have to be able to have the knowledge to be able to find the people that really could meet their needs like we would as best as we could, but not being their parents because we are still, in that role. And we don't want to create a situation where they're resentful because you're there
Right.
taking data on everything they do, trying to create a goal for everything. Who wants to live with someone like that? So, I mean, it's basically do the best you can with what you've got, look into it, dig deep, and then try to find a situation like this that's going to be the catalyst for progression and for meeting all these wonderful goals.
Awesome. Mark, thanks so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it this afternoon. And for anybody that's listening, if you want to find out a little bit more about John 13, you can go to our website, john13.org. So just JOHN, the number 13.org. And you'll see some different information, some pictures, a newsletter you can subscribe to. We might have some videos out there depending on when you look and what we have going on. Or feel free to give me a call. My cell phone is 512-917-6923. My name again is Mike Carr. And this is Mark Garcia. Thank you so much again, Mark. Great conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.